Hello and welcome to this Teach Middle East conference event. My name's Craig Kemp and it's an absolute pleasure to be here with you today. I'm very excited to be here, coming to you live from Singapore. I'm a New Zealander, so don't hold that against me, but I've been living in Singapore now for almost 10 years. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about culture, innovation, and the power of technology. And I'm excited to be here today because just a day or 24 hours ago, we launched eduspark.world, an exciting new professional learning portal, which I'll tell you all about a little bit later on today. But today I'm going to talk about culture eats strategy for breakfast. I'm going to talk a little bit about what's happening in the current world with EdTech and what I'm seeing as a consultant and someone working with schools and EdTech companies from all over the world. But let's kick things off and let me tell you a little bit about me. Like I said, I've been in Singapore for almost 10 years now, and I was born in New Zealand. I'm excited to be here for a multitude of reasons. Number one, I know many of you. I've been connected to many of you for a long time online. You know, Twitter has been my world. It's been the way that I've connected, the way that I've learned, the way that I've developed, and the way that I've grown. And, you know, for me, the reason for moving to Asia and this part of the world has been to travel. You know, obviously COVID has significantly changed that for me and many of you as well. But it doesn't change the fact that I can still connect and engage with people from all over the world, any way, anywhere, anyhow, anytime, through the power of technology. I have two young daughters, aged 3 and 7, Ella and Chloe, and they're the reason why I do what I do. You know, they're the reason why I chose to leave my school and start my own consultancy company, to give myself flexibility, to be an edupreneur, and to try and do things differently, shake up the world of learning and professional learning so that we can do better and be better every step of the way. My experiences, I've been a teacher and a leader in schools my whole life, taught in New Zealand for about 9 years prior to moving to Singapore. I was a primary trained public school primary teacher in the year 3 to 6 type age range. Before I left, I was an assistant principal, moved over to here, taught in an Australian curriculum school for a few years, supporting EdTech and innovation, middle school learning, as a classroom teacher as well. And then I moved into the role in a large American international school, 3,500 students, and my role was the Director of Educational Technology and Innovation. My role was to support with my amazing team the way we use technology to enhance teaching and learning and add value to learning. So my whole life has been surrounded by technology and, of course, in the classroom supporting students and teachers as leaders and learners as well. Now I get to work, and I have the pleasure of working with EdTech companies and with schools from all over the world. And it's a pleasure to do that each and every day. And of course, as I mentioned right at the beginning of this session, I'm the founder of EdUSpark World, the new way to learn, develop, and grow as a teacher or a leader. And you can find more at eduspark.world. If you're on Twitter or on any social media channels, you'll find us as well by searching for EdUSpark World. We launched on Monday, and it's an exciting time for me, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the why behind this and how it fits into this power of technology piece a little bit later on. But first, I wanted to start by talking a little bit about the current state of EdTech. You know, why are we doing what we're doing now in the middle of this pandemic? You know, we're hopefully moving towards a place where we're more comfortable in using technology authentically and purposefully in a pandemic state, or as I hope it to be, an endemic state. But this is what I've noticed working with schools and people all over the world the past 18 months. We've adapted to change really well. You know, we were thrown in the deep end for many of us. But what we've done is actually pretty amazing when we look back at it. Many of us were in schools where we had no strategy, and still schools don't have great strategy on the use of technology to enhance teaching and learning. But many of us have been teaching in a remote learning situation now for a long time. Hopefully, some of you listening here are back face to face, and many of you are, many of you still won't be. But it is exciting to be able to change the way we do things and adapt to these changing times as well. Many of us have different views on remote teaching, and one of the things I really love about this is that parents have had to change their mind on teachers as well. We're no longer people that work 9 till 3 and have the most amazing holidays in the world. Parents now realize how hard we work. We don't just work 9 till 3. We're working around the clock for them and their kids. And now's the opportunity to drive this home. Now's the time to train our parents, to help them understand why we do what we do and how we do it, to get them on board this journey, because we can't do it alone. We need their help to do this. And while our budgets are dropping, our priorities have adapted, and now more than ever, there's an investment in technology. Leaders and people in schools are now realizing that we have to invest in technology and we have to do it right. It's not just going out there and buying the next best EdTech tool. It's about being strategic about the way we use technology. And before we get to that strategy piece, it's all about culture. Have you built the right culture? Have you invested in the people in your building? Because that's where we need to invest, not in the latest tools that are going to give the newest things to your kids. It's about you investing in teacher professional learning. And that's, to me, why I want to be here sharing with you today. Because we live in this world where things change so dramatically. I love this diffusion of innovation model. The whole idea that we live in an environment and work in an environment that's very different, and every context is very unique. But one of the things I've learnt working with schools and people all over the world is that our schools are actually more similar than we realize. No matter what curriculum we use, the people that we have in our building, whether we're public or private, a lot of the time, and people don't like this all the time, but our schools are very similar. We have similar people. If you're in a school without any laggards, people that push back at you, I want to come and work there, because I've never found a school without any of these people. Most of our schools, about 70% of us, sit in this majority. The majority is where most of us sit. Most of us feel comfortable. We wait, we see what's happening, and we follow each other along. I call it the teacher next door model. When John or Lisa's doing it next door, then I'm comfortable in doing it. Now, every school has those innovators, the people that just go try new things, take risks. They're the people that thrived during the pandemic. The people that just went and did it, tried new things, didn't matter if they got it wrong, but they gave it a go. And to me, that's the exciting part, because the early adopters followed. And you're probably in this 16, 20% of people, because you're here today learning in your own time. You're probably the people that love to try new things and take risks. But how do we bring everyone else along on this journey with us? How do we help people adopt and change their way of thinking? The laggards are the people that say to us, this is the way I've always done things. The most dangerous phrase in education. How do we help those people shift? How do we help those people grow and develop in everything that they do? And, to me, it's about this teacher next door model. It's about helping people who want to be helped. We can invest 10% of our time in these laggards, but they will take up 90% of our energy. Is that really how you want to be using your time when you're excited and energized about change? No. So invest your time in the early adopters. Invest your time in the early majority, because that's where you're going to get the biggest change. And think of it like a train with many carriages. Get people moving early. Get people moving to a place where you can get them going on their own. You can leave them and start working and spending a little bit more time with the late majority, who in turn will be able to spend time with the laggards. So as you can see, it's all about the people. It's all about how you do what you do. And more importantly, as Simon Sinek says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So if you're going to make change in your school when it comes to the authentic and purposeful use of technology, it's all about the why. And why comes from culture. Why comes from strategy. Do you know why you do what you do? Simon Sinek talks about the golden circle in his book, Start With Why. And if you haven't read this book yet, I encourage you to go and check it out, because it's one of the most inspirational books to me, both at a personal level and as a professional level. I think to myself all the time, when there's a decision to be made, why? Why should I do that? Why should I invest money? Why should I present at Teach Middle East? Why do I do what I do? Why should eduspark.world be a part of our life? Well, I can easily tell you that, and I'll talk about it a little bit later on, but everything we do with technology should come from why. Do you know why you're here today? What's your why for being at this conference or coming to listen to me? If this isn't a significant part of your reason for being a part of this, then you need to think about that. Why do you want to make a change when it comes to technology? Why do you want to grow? Why do you want to learn? Because that impacts our how. Without our why, we can't work our way out to be successful. We can't get to our what, which is the implementation plan of our strategy. So let's put that into some context here, and let's use a little bit of research and evidence-based thinking to get us going forward here. So here's a bit of pedagogy. Some of you would have heard of the SAMR model before that I've got here. Some of you would have heard of the TPAC model. There's many other models out there. I'm using the SAMR model because to me, it's the simplest. To me, it's something that I've used to help build confidence and strategy in educators from all walks of life in schools that I work with. So the SAMR model was developed by an incredible person named Ruben Putindera. And if you don't know Ruben, definitely look him up. Search SAMR model or Ruben Putindera. And we'll share that in the chat here as well. But the SAMR model for me is an amazing way of thinking about how you use technology to transform learning. And I've mentioned EduSpark a few times today, and the SAMR model is actually something that a small part of what's inspired me to build EduSpark.world. That whole idea of how do we help educators transform their practice? How do we help educators transform their ability to learn, to lead learning, to be a face of learning in their school? And that's what we've done, to try and create a space where we can actually deliver on the promise of transformation, true redefinition of what was previously inconceivable in the world of professional learning. And that's how we've shaken it up. But when I think about something more granular here, let's go to the teaching, something that we would use in teaching every day. Let's talk about, writing in the primary years, for example. And let's say, I'm a traditional teacher and my kids write in books. That's all they do. They write their stories in books and they write their text in their books. And they handwrite everything, even though, I know that maybe some of my kids would be better at expressing themselves in different ways. That's the way I've always done things. I'm a laggard and that's where I feel comfortable. So thinking about that, I'm in a school that's wanting to transform learning. We want to be at the cutting edge of what we do. So let's start small. And Ruben Putindera says this, this is not a ladder. We don't climb our way up the SAMR model to be more transformational. We think about what we do and we use the SAMR model as a lens to help us be successful. So let's think about writing now. Now, a substitution would be I use Google Docs. There's no functional change to the writing or the learning. But there's a small enhancement. I'm using Google Docs now, but let's augment that a little bit. Maybe in the planning stage of my writing unit development, I think to myself, instead of just writing, I want the kids to give each other feedback. So in Google Docs, we'll actually allow functionality where we give feedback, peer feedback. And I think to myself, last time I did that, but there's so much more I can do. And I think, how can I transform learning? Do something that was previously inconceivable. So I think, what about a tool like Mote, a voice feedback tool, or a tool like Floop that allows me to completely redefine the experience for my learners? It's not just now writing in a Google Doc and giving feedback and getting enhancements. It's actually a complete redefinition. I can use these add-ons or these tools to completely redefine the learning experience, meaning that my learners' tools or their outcome is incredibly different. So my recommendation as you start the new school year for many of you in the Northern Hemisphere, think about how the SAMR model can help transform teaching and learning in your classroom or in your team or in your school. And I encourage this to be a way of thinking. You don't have to write this down, but every time you go to plan a learning experience, think, how can I transform learning using technology as a tool to redefine the learning experience. Because at the end of the day, this is what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve a world where we get our kids to make and create, not just consume. And don't get me wrong, there's a place for consumption, right? We all know that. My daughter, my 7-year-old, said to me over the holidays, I want to learn my 5 and 10 times table. And I went straight back to rote learning. If you want to learn it, we need to do repetition. We need to consume. Yeah, we did a little bit of creating and making, but the stickiness of those times tables was repetition, rote learning, repeating things, singing songs, doing things, flashcards over and over again. And she rocked at it and she loved it. And she's very proud of herself. So there's a time and a place for consumption. But I want you to move towards a place where technology can help us create better learning experiences. Because as Seymour Papert says, the role of the teacher is to create the conditions for invention rather than to provide ready-made knowledge. And let's look at this for a moment. To me, probably one of the most comprehensive research studies around, developed every year by the World Economic Forum. This is their Future of Jobs report. Came out in December of 2020, and remembering that this was data pre-COVID, so I'm very curious to see, hopefully in December this year, the new World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report that may show us the first impact studies on COVID and what it's caused. And I would hazard a guess that maybe those green colours will be a little bit more. At the moment here, we're looking at resilience, stress tolerance, and flexibility. To me, probably the 3 skills that us as leaders of learning and our students and parents have had to have at the forefront of our mind over the past 18 months. The skills that I think have been the most important to be successful. And I think we'll see that will have changed quite a bit. But when we look at this, based on tens of thousands of research points all over the world in all different forms of education, 50% of these skills are problem-solving skills. So I ask you, as you look at these top 10 skills, and I talk a little bit about them, how many of these do you explicitly teach? How many of these skills do you teach to your students, or if you're a leader and work with adults, your teachers, or your leaders or middle leaders in your school, or your parents in your school? Are you helping them be analytical thinkers or be innovative? Are you helping them be problem solvers, critical thinking, be creative, use their initiative? Ideate, design. How many of those skills are you explicitly teaching? And we're going to use what I call the fist to 5 scale here. And you're going to put your answers in the chat here. And we're going to have a look. But I call it the fist to 5 scale. And you can use this in your classroom too. So for me, a fist is 0. 0 or 1 of these skills. All the way up to 5, which is all 10 of these skills. So looking at these top 10 skills, where are you on the fist to 5 scale? Put your number 0 to 5 in the chat now. 0 being I explicitly teach none of these skills. 1 or 2 being, I explicitly teach 3, 4 of these skills. 3 or 4, probably 5 to 8 of these skills. And if you're a 5, you're teaching or explicitly teaching 9 or 10 of these skills. So for me, I'm probably a 3 or a 4 in the work I do. I hope that eduspark.world is going to be a place where, we can achieve that 10 out of 10, a place that we constantly evolve, that we bring the best of the best together. That's the hope as we grow and develop in that space. But I think we've all got something to learn here. And I can see some 2s, some 3s, 4s, 1s. We're pretty split here as well. And that's the way that we are in our school. And I encourage you to take this back to your school and ask some questions as well. Because we're in this time of constant change. The whole idea is that this is a critical skill. The skill of learning to unlearn. Learning to unlearn so that we can relearn. And I think back to that skills list and I think, what skills do I need to unlearn as a leader of learning? So that I can relearn the skills that are important for the learners of the future. I don't want to live in my past. I want to live in my students' future. What's important to them? How can I embrace this as a learner or a leader? And I encourage you to take this idea back as well. As Alvin Toffler says, the illiterate of the 21st century are not those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I created this model over the past 18 months as I work with, more than 40 schools all over the world during this pandemic. both face-to-face and majority of them virtually. The whole thing of a cycle is really important. How do we close the loop on learning, both as a leader and as a learner? And for me, it's all about teams and working together. It's all about closing the loop and bringing people on board. So you build a team, you build a team that starts with those innovatives, the early adopters, the people that want to change and are already doing amazing things. And behind that, you start building a plan. So you can see here that it's starting with people. And people only come on board if we have a culture where people want to jump on board. They're not forced to come on board. We don't dictate down to them to come on board. But we start thinking about how this process can begin. And then we start leading PD. And we start bringing teachers on board. And we start rewarding growth. And we start, bringing on board the late adopters. And we start rewarding people for being a part of that mindset. We shift those mindsets to a part and a place where everyone wants to be involved in this learning process. And if you want to learn more, reach out. My contact details in the bottom right-hand corner here, linktree/Mr. Kemp NZ. All my contact details are there, and I'm very open to helping you, to answering your questions, and to being there to support your journey. And you can tell that I love a quote. Dexter Yeager says, "You'll never leave where you are until you decide where you'd rather be." And that is critical, because in this world where many of you are either in a remote learning situation or just coming back to the realities of what face-to-face is going to be like. And, for me, the next 12 to 18 months are all about building capacity. The next 18 months is in, are schools being true to their word? Are they going to invest in people? Are you going to build capacity in the people in your building? If you're a leader in your school, how are you doing that? How are you making sure that you're bringing the best minds and putting them in front of your teachers? How are you making sure that they can personalize their own learning pathway? How are you making sure that people in your building, including yourself, stay relevant? Because things aren't going to be handed to you on a silver platter. Are you going to seek opportunities to learn? Are you going to create opportunities to learn? Are you going to try new things and take risks? Are you going to build a PLN, a professional learning network? I love PLNs. I'm connected to nearly 45,000 educators on Twitter, and Twitter has been the biggest growth in my learning journey. That's where I go to learn, develop, and grow. That's where I met Lisa. That brought me this opportunity to speak to you today. I love the opportunity to connect and engage with people. And many of you here today, I recognize a few names. I love to be here, and I love to share. The whole idea of storytelling and creating and sharing is what I'm so passionate about. But at the end of the day, this whole building capacity piece starts with you. How are you going to stay relevant? How are you going to stay ahead of the game? One of the things that I chose to do, this was nearly 2 years ago now. I started the Ignite EdTech podcast, and we're now 60 plus episodes deep. And it was my way of giving back. It was my way of creating and sharing. And the Ignite EdTech podcast drops every Friday morning. Middle East time, it's around about midnight your time. So by the time you wake up every Friday, a new Ignite EdTech podcast episode would be there. All you have to do is search for Ignite EdTech podcast, and you'll find it in your podcast channel of choice. But I chose to create a space where people can learn with me for free. I wanted people to engage in free EdTech professional development. And so that's why I developed this. So, on my podcast, I speak to the best minds in education. I give them the opportunity to share, to learn, to grow with these people. I share my favorite tool of the week. So if you're someone that loves to try new things, jump on and have a listen. I share some tips and advice like I have here today as well. You shouldn't need any more if you're jumping on this EdTech journey. If you love podcasts, I encourage you to jump on board. I'd love for you to jump in and learn with me as well. And this sort of brings me to wanting to tell you a little bit about, my why over the past 12 months, my why of building eduspark.world, the place that teachers and leaders from all over the world are coming to learn, develop, and grow, to stay relevant, like we talked about just now. It's the new way to learn, develop, and grow. If you're an early years teacher, all the way through to grade 12, EduSpark is for you. If you're a leader of a school, EduSpark is for you. It launched on Monday, so it's super fresh, 24, 48 hours ago. EduSpark is an all-you-can-eat buffet of learning. It's your one-stop shop. High-quality leaders from all over the world, teachers, thought leaders, you name it, they're here. We've got people like Kath Murdoch coming on board very soon. People like Eric Scheninger, Richard Gerver, Victoria Thompson, people from all over the world doing incredible things. I encourage you to go check it out. You can go to our landing page and you'll see a list of some of our amazing people as well. And of course, underrepresented people. And if you feel that you're one of these people, you want to share your voice to the world, contact me. I want to help you amplify your voice to the world. And if you're a leader of a school, reach out. I want to help you connect your teachers to the best professional learning opportunities, because it's not just learning from all of these other people. It's the data, it's the community that we've built underneath this to support you. And actually, as an added incentive to schools, we actually want you to build your own programs in here at no additional cost. You pay per teacher per year at an incredibly low price point, and we give you the functionality to build your own programs, your own safeguarding courses, your own literacy programs. Whatever you want to do, you can do it in here and get all the benefits of the data that we have behind the scenes. Here are some snapshots, some of the things from behind the scenes that you see when you're on board with EduSpark. The ability to track progress, see when people are engaging, how long they're engaging for, be able to personalize your learning journey, to be able to connect and engage with the best minds in education. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. 4 of the most important topics in my mind that are at the forefront of everyone's mind. And we've brought those to the forefront of professional learning. We want you to learn from the best with the best for the best reasons. Things that you can do to help yourself and others grow. So come and join us, eduspark.world. I'd love to have you on this journey. Send me a message. I'll help you out. I'll give you a walkthrough. If you want to share this with your leaders, send them my way and I can help them as well. But I wanted to finish on this, because what we've talked about a lot today is growth. We've talked about development. We've talked about what we need to do to build capacity to be successful in the future. But one of the things we often forget about is ourselves. We forget that, we are the last generation to understand what life was like before the internet. The last generation to understand life before a smartphone. The last generation to understand how to connect without social media. I was talking to a friend today and, I said, if I wanted to connect back in the day, I hopped on my bike and I came round to your house. That's how we connected. But now it's a message, it's a TikTok, it's an Instagram post. It's the way that we connect and engage, and we can't dismiss that. Technology changes too fast for us to dismiss ways of learning. We are the last generation to be fluent translators of what it was like before and now after this infusion of technology that has changed so quickly in the world that we live in. And for me, I'm guilty of this as well. We're the last generation to wonder each morning what you should do instead of picking up your smartphone every morning and looking at your notifications to see what you miss. The whole idea here is that we have to plan with our future in mind. We have to be strategic. But more importantly, we have to build a culture where we want to be ahead of the game, where we want to learn, where we want to grow, where we want to build capacity. Because the reality is, if we don't, we will be left behind. And I know I'm preaching to the converted here, because you're learning here in your own time, most likely. But how do you share this message to the people in your school or in your professional learning network or in your community? How can we collectively help them grow as part of this community of learning? And that's one question I want you to take away and think about. And I'd love to chat to you on social media as well. You can find me on all the social medias, and I'll put them up here just while I finish off. Please do connect with me. And of course with EduSpark as well. But I wanted to really just finish off today by saying, think about your future, but more importantly, think about the future of your learners. How can we help them be successful in the world that they are going to lead and live in? How are we going to help them thrive in the world that they will be in over the next 10, 20, 30 years, this unknown landscape that we're pushing them towards? How do we use the data that we talked about today to inform those decisions? If we were ever going to make a change in education, now is the time. If we're ever going to make a movement, now is the time. It's the exact why for us building eduspark.world. We want to change professional learning. We want to engage with people. We don't want to compete. We want to work together to grow, to develop, and to thrive. So with that, I'm going to stop. If you have questions, throw them in the chat, and I would be happy to answer them now. I really do appreciate your time. I really do appreciate you being here, giving up the time today to learn, grow with me, and for listening to this Kiwi accent for the last 30 minutes. But just to finish off, please stay connected, please help each other out, and enjoy the rest of this amazing event put on by an incredible team of people. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Middle East Teaching. I really do appreciate the invite to be involved. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Please throw those questions in. I'll do my best to answer them. Maybe not here today, but I'll definitely connect with you. Throw some things out on social media. Let's catch up again soon. Have a fantastic rest of your day learning and growing with the incredible people here. I'll see you again very soon. Goodbye.